There's so many things I want to talk about, but I really do want to talk about language and our role in the world as far as language is concerned, because I think it is desperate. And I feel the Dean already touched on it. You know, there are these great moments in history where you can see something profound is happening, which is shifting the whole paradigm. And we know it's happening now, and it might not be in our interests, if I can put it like that. Or it might be doing something to our culture that we know not what of. And of course I'm talking about the internet, the computer, the information revolution, the thing that we're doing all the time. And why it feels is that it is becoming so... I don't want to say, maybe dangerous is the wrong word, but all my antennae are out about this, is because we're actually somehow severing the idea of the thought and the feeling in the body, and it finding language and it being put out there, human being to human being, and that through this we find out what it means to be human. And so what we're doing is we're actually getting on these networks and we're talking to people that we don't see, that we don't hear, and that we don't really have any visceral sense of the language that's going on. And yet there is this massive amount of communication that's going on. And we don't know where this is coming out. We don't know what it's doing to our brains. We don't know what it's doing to our societies. It might be incredible, but somehow, because we live in the world of the spoken word, it's going, danger, danger, danger. And so I wanted to talk for a little while about this, and then I wanted to have a kind of Socratic dialogue for the last 20 minutes maybe about what you think about it. So, because one of the things about this thing is it is incredible that we're here with each other and we have this common passion of Shakespeare, which means that intuitively within ourselves we're drawn to something that is larger than ourselves, and we inhabit this world. So we know things about each other on an intuitive level that we can trust, if I can put it like that. So I wanted to talk about what I see and perceive, and then maybe we all try and join in the conversation. In fact, listening to Lisa just directing a little bit of The Tempest, a scene I hate in The Tempest, you know, all that stuff about Clarabelle and blah, blah, blah. I was just listening to her and I suddenly got a whole perspective about Dido and Aeneas and what that marriage was on a symbolic level and what Shakespeare was talking about, because I was listening to what she was saying, and then when I fed it back to her what I heard, she hadn't even thought of that. Do you know, if I can put it like that, it's extraordinary that a piece of knowledge came forth because of me listening to the text of what Lisa was saying, and that stimulated another depth of knowing from me, that I then could say to her, my God, you were so brilliant. She said, I didn't even know I was doing that. There is something about our relationship to language, because we use it all the time, because we are the greatest master of language is our master, that language itself throws up ideas from the unconscious mind. That there are ideas in language that we don't even know is embedded in there. And through the saying and listening, not the writing and the seeing, but the saying and listening, something happens to us, right? That it actually allows information to come forth. Are you with me? And it was so startling. I snuck into the back of what she was doing and listened to 5 actors doing these words of a scene I didn't even like. And then she just pointed out the scene goes from verse to prose, and well, I shouldn't say this because you're going to say it in your thing, but then goes back to verse again. So simple in pointing out that Shakespeare had written a structure which was indicative of how we might be able to perceive this, and how the actors' rhythms would change because of that, and how it would tap into different sensory perceptions of what was going on. But there's one thing that's happening about neuroscience and about the art of memory, which is very inspiring to me, because I think Shakespeare's genius came out of the fact, in many ways, that he was tapping into and learned all his days, 6 days a week, the art of rhetoric, which we'll talk a bit about. But the art of rhetoric has, as you all know, these 5 departments, one of which is what's the point of what you're talking about. The second is what's the arrangement of what you're talking about. So what are you going to say first, and how are you going to support what you're going to say second? Then the style, all those figures of speech that people like Becky and various other people are working on to actually see what that does to your imagination that you use. We know because of similes and metaphors, well, there's a difference between a simile and a metaphor. But they had thousands of figures of speech in order to open up their philosophical, psychological, and poetical souls so that they could more accurately create the images that you needed to create because of our sensory perceptions, which we'll get back into in a minute. But also so you could learn it much better, learn it faster. And the whole thing of what the imagery and style is of what you're saying has such a profound effect upon not just the human psyche, but the human body. Then there is delivery, which is the 4th one, which is our voice and movement exercises, that we do sometimes every day of our lives. Some of us for 3 years in training in the conservatory and think, thank God that's over, I never need to do that again. But actually allowing that we are our instrument, and what people are seeing is us. And then the 4th is the art of memory, which is the one we're losing most rapidly because, of course, we all have access to instant information. But it's not like Shakespeare's memory, in which he had to learn what he was studying every day of his schooling life. At the end of the day, they said it back. At the end of the week, they said the whole thing back. Then on Sunday, they'd heard the sermon, and they'd automatically learn that. It is no wonder those actors could learn a play in a day and get up there, and with a few mnemonics, and a list on the back, they could more or less get through it because their memories were so incredible. But they also were cross-referencing. So when Shakespeare's writing a play, the fact that Ovid appears 1 minute and Holinshed the next minute and Plutarch the next minute, and then he's got a bit of Apuleius stuck in there and then a little Socratic dialogue, and he's using mostly the art of rhetoric to write the plays. So he's cross-referencing his own mind, and he's writing in the art of rhetoric, which is the art of persuading somebody who doesn't know something into being persuaded, and using your whole emotional, feeling, intellectual sense to do that. Not the art of logic, although in As You Like It, as you know, he switches into the art of logic with Touchstone and the if and all that stuff. But in the art of logic, which is what they used in the universities, they were proving what was already known. The art of rhetoric opens up the question, and you are trying to ask what the hell's going on and what can we learn from this. All these people who say it couldn't have been Shakespeare because he didn't go to university are daft. If he'd have gone to university, it would have wrecked him. What I'm going to talk about is how it is my personal opinion, but I've started saying it out loud rather a lot now, that unless women start not just speaking out,
but speaking out with their full voices and being in touch with what they're feeling as they say it, the world's never going to come right. Just slightly cliched way of saying, you know, men are trained to be manly, they're trained to go out front, they're trained to assert with their voice, they're trained to think in a linear fashion. This is, I know it's a real generalization, but just try it on for size. Probably most men in here rebelled against that masculine definition, but women are meant to be intuitive and holding back slightly, and yes, being the feeling person, but not thrusting their voices out there. You know, I'm a Shakespeare director, so I spend all my time with Shakespeare's plays, either as an actor or as a director. And so I have learned things as I go along about what Shakespeare says about this, and he's probably my driving force. If we do not, and I mean we women, if we do not assert, if we do not put out what it is that we feel, I think the world's never going to come straight, because there's always going to be a predominance of male voices, not female voices. And I mean a full voice. Do you understand? It's a slightly... so women are speaking out much more, but I'm asking especially the women in the room to come out with your voice. The difference between the embodied voice, which is in touch with what you're saying, that actually is allowing yourself to be heard on many levels, instead of the voice you're trained with, or the one that I played Dora in David Copperfield a long time ago. But I played Dora, and she was Daddy's little girl, you know. And she did everything that Dodie asked her to, and then she dies. Of course she bloody dies. I mean, I loved playing her because it was different from me. And I loved having a lisp, and I loved doing... But it doesn't get you anywhere, because if you don't, it doesn't get the woman anywhere if what you want to do is shift the world. And I think we're all now feeling the urgency that we have to shift the world. When you look at the whole spectrum of Shakespeare's plays, had directed about 2/3 of them by the time I started realizing this, that there's a trajectory to his writing. So when he's a young man, he's writing Taming of the Shrew. And the woman is a shrew, and she's got to be shut up. And by the end of the play, she does shut up, and then she can have a happy marriage. You have to remember, Shakespeare was a very young man when he was writing this story. Look at Joan of Arc, another early character. She speaks out. He kind of loves her in the beginning, but then she's out there doing terrible things to the English. And anyway, what are we going to do if a woman really is a good military leader? We've got to burn her at the stake. So she speaks and she gets burnt at the stake. And so in Shakespeare's early plays, he's talking about the women who speak out and then they get done in. And then the women start shifting in his writing, and he gets sexual passion. So we go to Romeo and Juliet. And you know, Juliet is actually, she talks even more than Romeo does, and she is in touch with what she's saying. But all her energy goes towards her love for Romeo and his to her. And what you see is when a man and a woman truly love each other on equal terms, that passion can change the world. In the third section of his writing life, he's actually seeing if women disguise themselves as men, they actually can say what they like. They can organize the whole spectrum of characters, and it all comes out right. You know, so in Twelfth Night, in As You Like It, Rosalind organizes the whole of society. You can't shut her up, but she's allowed, because she's in man's clothes, to speak as much as she likes, whereas before, when she was in women's clothes, she hardly said a word. Her cousin Celia says much more. Once she's in disguise, she has the freedom to speak out. The moment she has the freedom to speak out, she actually can get out there. The fourth part of Shakespeare's writing life is when the women want the same as the men, and they're only interested in power, which is Lady Macbeth and Volumnia, and then it's wholesale fascism in the country. There's no voice, no woman's voice to stop. And then in the last part of Shakespeare's writing life, he's actually saying, we've got to do what the women say. So if you have a play like Winter's Tale, which is one of my favorite plays, you've got Hermione being accused of infidelity. She speaks well on her own behalf, but it's a trial, and her husband, although he's not meant to be, is judge and jury. And at that moment, when she's being judged, her boy, the young masculine voice, is reported as dead. So I just want you to see how it works out in abstract terms, if you will. And then Paulina, who's called the witch, comes on and absolutely not only reads him the riot act, you know, what studied torments Tarrant hast for me, you know, so she pages. And at the end of that, he says, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And he serves her for the next 15 years. In the meantime, the baby daughter, who got thrown out on the hillside to die, is taken up by shepherds and brought up in nature. She then is able to start redeeming the whole thing, just with, you know, she's over in Bohemia. But by the time she comes back and has made her alliance with the young man, so we have that sexual spiritual merging again, and aided by Paulina, who's actually kept Hermione alive for all these things, all these years. And it means Leontes can actually deeply say, I'm sorry, have his daughter, and the daughter redeems the father. Are you with me? That it's the daughter speaking out, it's the witch or the creative figure in the Tempest, Ariel, speaking out, that actually can change the story. So this is one of the reasons why I started getting this idea in my head that women had got to start speaking out. So how do you speak out? What is it that you do? Well, you actually start speaking with the whole of your body, not just this little bit up here. You actually make sure that people are hearing what you say. And of all, you know, we understand the world through our sensory perceptions, you know, sight, taste, smell. But hearing is the only one that's in a loop, because when you speak out, that stimulates thought and feeling in other people, and then they respond to you. It's got a loop to it. Do you understand me? Whereas if you see something stunningly beautiful and you're using your visual sense, you're just staring at it. Or you might say, oi, come here, isn't that fantastic? But you're not exchanging. If you smell, unless you say yum, 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 taste this, but if you smell, that stays with you. Do you understand me? But the speaking, the physical speaking, means we go backwards and forwards all the time. So inherent within speaking out is allowing other people to get in dialogue, and it's through dialogue that we can start working out. Now, the Elizabethans also thought there was one of the reasons why Shakespeare is such an incredible instrument to be common ground for us to talk about things, so that we can go in much more in depth. And we have the Shakespeare plays as a kind of a gathering place, because he's written so deeply, and often, you know, two or three thoughts going along at the same time. That it allows us to expand our consciousness as we discuss these kind of very broad topics. And one of the things that Wittgenstein, who happens to be one of my favorite philosophers, probably because I did a play about him, but he said this famous thing, whereof one cannot, I've forgotten the bloody quote, but, you know, if you can't speak about it, then be silent. And then he felt that philosophy and and theatre were in competition, and that in fact theatre won. And why he felt that theatre won was because you could embody the argument in theatre, and you could actually, you weren't just working intellectually, you were working with the whole of yourself, and you could hold alternative truths. And so the intellectual pursuit in and of itself couldn't get to the same place where theatrical truth can get to. And I just know as an actor, as well as a director and a writer, but it's as an actor that I am most alive with who Shakespeare is. In other words, when I'm really taking on what he's saying, whichever character I'm playing, that's when I can see things that I couldn't normally see, because I'm really trying to own it, not just what it means, so with my head, but with my heart, with my gut. I'm really trying to embody the truth, and I'm trying to allow my language to be as sensual as possible, because he was writing in very sensual language. So I think the fact that Shakespeare was writing in a very sensual, vibrational language, which actually fills the body with feeling and oxygen and aliveness, is one of the things that expands the consciousness of the themes in the plays. So even if he's doing terrible things, especially to women, but if he's doing terrible things, there still is an underlying power in embodiment. One of the things about Shakespeare's structure is it isn't necessarily an artificial structure. It actually does have some of its roots in nature. It does have its roots in music. It does have its roots in sound. It does have its roots in many things besides the iambic pentameter, which was brought by Thomas Wyatt and the Earl of Surrey from Italy some 50, 60 years earlier. And the whole idea and the iambic pentameter and the whole idea of form and style lives in the art of rhetoric. And Shakespeare learnt the art of rhetoric for 8 years, maybe 6, maybe 8, every day, working on what does it mean to speak persuasively. And then also the whole thing about what are the pieces of the art of rhetoric? Well, it's, the story that you're telling, that's the most important, if you will. But then the way in which you tell it, the arrangement, the way you're putting the different pieces in, then style, which we will be spending a lot of time on now, which is, what are the figures of speech? What are the images? What are the metaphors? What's the antithesis in the line? And John Barton used to say, Antina, you have always got to think of who is saying this and what is their intelligence that they are using those figures of speech. And it's something that got indelibly marked upon me. So I have to say that I think that means it's very closely related to the psychology, which is what we dealt with last time, the psychology of the character that you're playing, because a lot of the information is in the poetry or the prose of what they're saying. What the text is Shakespeare's imagination and the way that his poetic mind, but he's also his dramatic mind, is actually constructing the text. It goes from his imagination to his hand, to the actor reading it, to the actor owning it, and to the actor saying it to the audience without anybody thinking, oh, I can see Shakespeare's hand there. But the connection between the actor and the audience is so powerful that they're living in this imaginative storytelling in a way that has expanded our thinking to see what it is that's going on politically, what it is that's going on psychologically. And it's asking the question all the time is, what does it mean to be a human being? And where do you sit in this story? What would you do if somebody's killed your sons and now he wants to marry your daughter? And if you don't let him marry your daughter, he's probably going to kill her too. What would you do? I mean, thank God most of us don't live in that kind of dilemma, but people in Yemen are living in that kind of dilemma. People in other parts of the world are, And here in America, we're finally trying to struggle with the 400 years of absolutely systematic racism. And that's built into every fabric of our institutional structures. And I include Shakespeare and Company in that was created to be a multiracial, multi-ethnic company because we believed you could see the universal truths much better. Anyway, so I just want to make sure that you get what the text is, and that it's actually a way of you going back to his poetic soul. When I think of what the great works of art are, they all have their roots in other things. So in this last one, I called it the personal, because I want to talk about some things that personally happened to me out of doing Shakespeare. But I think the first thing I want to ask you to do is actually think about when a line of Shakespeare or a whole play of Shakespeare or one speech of Shakespeare made a real difference to you, and that you found when you said it, something shifted inside of you. And it might not always be a sense of recognition. I mean, for instance, I used to, when I was first at the RSC, my first role was Luciana in Comedy of Errors. And I used to love saying her first long speech, which is, there's nothing, wait a minute, why headstrong liberty is lashed with woe. She's talking to her sister, and why her sister shouldn't be screaming and yelling all over the place. There's nothing situate under heaven's eye, but hath his bound in earth, in sea, in sky. The birds, the fishes, and the winged fowls are their male subjects, and at their controls, man, more divine, the master of all these, lord of the wide world and wild watery seas, endued with intellectual sense and souls of no preeminence, of something preeminence to fish and fowl. I've forgotten how it goes then. Then let your will depend on their accords, it ends up. In other words, women serve men, men are boss of the whole world. And it's our job as women to actually serve the men. Now, I like saying that. And I was fully an incipient feminist at that time, if not a full-blooded one. So why did I say that? Why did I like saying that? Well, first of all, it was being somebody that was not me, that I liked saying it. But I think it also was because it gave me access to the world I actually didn't believe in. In other words, I took on the world I didn't believe in. And I actually think the speech gives us the key to, one of the reasons why we're in the midst of global warming, because man thinks he's got dominion over the fish, the fowls, the trees, he thinks he owns it all. And this, as I said in the first thing when we were talking about the Elizabethan world pictures, because man feels he's been put on earth to be able to see the divine and be a member of the animal world, but he's the only one that has consciousness. And therefore that gives him power. And it says men, meaning the male human being, not women. And that led to all kinds of evils, and I think has led to global warming, because we've not worked with the elements, we've worked against them. We've not worked with the earth, we've exploited it. And we still are. And we're so full of invention and full of our love of invention that we've done incredible things. But have we done enough incredible things that we can stop global warming? My point, though, as far as the words are concerned, is that I liked saying them because it allowed me to go to a place that I didn't go. Or if I met somebody with those kind of worldviews that Luciana has, I thought they were idiots and I would scorn them. And yet when I played Luciana, I loved taking her on. But I loved The Princess of France in Love's Labour's Lost, which was my other big part. you know, saying the speech at the end. No, no, my lord, your grace is perjured much, full of dear guiltiness. Your oath I will not trust, but go with speed to some forlorn and naked hermitage. And she tells him, if you go and, you know, fast and pray and think for a whole year, and then come back and ask me to marry you, then I will. And I did like saying that because I really believed it. In other words, that if love was going to hold, it would not just hold through a year's separation, but it would expand through what you both learned in that year, how your mind was able to expand, how you were able to embrace more things. And so that she asked that instead of the kind of phony retreat that they were doing in the beginning, that he does a real retreat. And as you know, Rosaline asked Barone to go and make the sick in hospitals laugh. Instead of just being witty around the court, how about going and really see if you can shift the people who are really suffering? And so it's this taking on of something, expanding your own consciousness, even if it's somebody you don't like, but maybe when you think of the things that you like, they're actually saying things for you. And I think all great work of art does that.
How you are able to embody your truth out there on stage. When we're watching actors, if the actor is not alive in every fiber of her body, we lose interest. If the actor is not thinking something or embodying some state of being, we don't care. We actually pay money to see what it means to be a human being up there and being in the presence of other people's energy. To actually be able to be there in the presence of their energy, and they are embodying this text. And by embodying this text, I mean they're making the text come alive in every moment. So you're getting insights you never saw before. Even if you've seen 60 different versions of Hamlet, suddenly you're seeing it again fresh because this actor and in this situation is doing something you haven't seen before, and you're suddenly hearing the language on a level you never heard before, and you're vibrating with a note that you don't know why that actor's making that particular sound, but you're vibrating with it too, and it's coming alive. So there are a lot of ingredients in this. There are a lot of things that go to make you being present on the stage in this moment now. And then it's this moment now and this moment now. It's changing. Every moment you're embodying something else. You're illuminating something else. And you're using the whole of yourself to do it in. Even if you're playing a closed down, grumpy old person who never says anything to anybody and is closed off, you are the actor who is fully embodied playing that person. You're not just being that person in as much as, you know, we're putting somebody who is that, representing them on stage. We can do that on film, but in theatre it just doesn't work. There's a vacuum. You know, you don't watch them. You're not illuminated by what they're doing. You don't understand it. So the energy of the actor on stage has to not only be alive, but has to be extremely intelligent, a spiritual being, a sexual being, and an all-round courageous person, even if you're playing the opposite of that. So you're with me, aren't you? So can you see that you're both about to go in and then you stop yourselves? Right. Can you see, too fast, too much. You've never been in the same space before. Right. And the whole thing of walking in and you know, it's one of the powers of the scene is that you keep on nearly going and not going. And you eventually go when you have pledged yourselves to each other. Right. Because if you just think of what the consequences are for a minute,
Now, for you, it's fine. You're a prince of the realm. You really can do what the hell you like. Except you're in love, so your heart's really engaged. But for you, if you sleep with him and he doesn't marry you, you're done. You're done. Yeah. Or that means, I mean, how does Cressida end up?
She ends up with somebody else.
She does. She ends up with Diomedes.
Yes,
but what
Diomedes.
happens to her after that? Because Diomedes certainly don't marry her. Do you know what happens to her?
No.
So there's a lot of stories about what happens to Cressida, but we don't hear about her.
No.
After she's been,
right.
She's kind of been the men of throw, right. She's known as, he's as true as Troilus, and she's as false as Cressida, which is the story that comes down, but you might think, actually, he's the false one and she's the true one. But where they think she ended up was in being a prostitute in a leper colony. So she, I mean, Oh, well. But it means the stakes are enormously high for you, just enormously high. So there's your physical desire of what you want to do, and then there's the consequences of if, in fact, he's not true to this love, what will happen then.
Okay.
And then, so for you, you keep on trying to check that he is, and for you, you can't possibly think that you won't be. And what do you do?
Well, I go back and beat back the Greeks, and I call her evil, and I turn my back on her, and my city burns.
Yes. Serves you right. So what have we established? You've got to find a way of swearing by that bottle. So you don't know how to swear by the bottle. He's gonna, if you swear right, he'll give you some. But if you don't swear right, he's not going to give you some.
Yes.
So give me 3 or 4 how you might swear by the bottle. Well, how might you do that?
Well, he's going to swear that he swam ashore like.
No. I want you to give me some actions. So give me. So if you're swearing in church and you want God to believe you, to give me some. No, don't even do it to him. Do it to them.
So kneel to the bottle.
Okay, now go to the nth degree. Okay. Go on, what would you... No, to the nth degree! That's just doing the same thing. How else can you prove that you can grovel? How else can you prove you can grovel? That's right, kiss his foot. How else can you prove you can grovel? How else can you prove you can grovel? Okay, now I want you to do all those things, but do them even bigger. Oh, was that good enough? To each one, see if that was good enough for swearing by the bottle. Okay. Now, Stefano, can you really give him the order to swear by the bottle? And can you start enjoying the drink yourself? So you're the king of the island, you've got the bottle, and then really you want him to be real lowest status.
Got it.
Do you do it? Just keep on making him, don't be afraid of kicking him or something like that. Just duck him up. And you've got to keep on thinking they're brave things. And go even into the audience and say, oh, aren't they great, aren't they wonderful, I don't care. Whatever you do. Okay, let's go. Okay, jump up and down, the pair of you, for the 3 of you. Yeah. And go. Oh.
These be fine things, and if they be not spirits, that's a brave God, and bears celestial liquor. I will kneel to him.
How didst thou escape? How didst thou escape?
Keep on going.
How didst thou come king hither? Swear by this bottle how thou camest hither. I escaped on a butt of sack which the sailors heaved overboard. By this bottle which I made of the bark of a tree with mine own hands since I was cast ashore.
I'll swear upon that bottle.
Get him to take notice of you. I'll swear upon the bottle. I know how to do it. Go to the nth degree.
Okay.
Big, 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 big.
I'll swear upon that bottle to be thy true subject. Here.
No. Thy true subject. Lick his feet. We're so bloody respectable. We have had all these inhibitions put on us that we don't let ourselves out into what is possible. I don't mean you should splat all over every scene. What I'm saying is, in your rehearsal, have some splatting. Go too far. You know, see what happens to you. Well, as you do that, so your body can start inventing things without your mind always getting in the way or think, do I look like an idiot? No, I'm not going to think that. I'm going to think of all the ways in which I can worship Stefano, so he's going to actually pay attention to me. Oh, God, I've got two subjects. I'm going to get higher and higher in my status. I'll kick them when I feel like it. I'll maybe offer to pull it away from them. Are they still following me? Yes, they are. So you're building what it means to be a king. You're finding out who your enemy is, and then you're on the bottom of the totem pole in a way, because you don't have any strength, which Caliban has, and you don't have any status. So in the end, you sulk and try and get your own way that way. But you know, you need to go to the nth degree. So now we're going to kind of go back and start looking a little at the history of theatre and my version of the history of theatre. And sometimes this is called. We'll do it in Socratic dialogue, which means that you'll talk, I'll talk, you'll talk, I'll talk, until I'm running out of time, and then I'll just tell you. Sometimes members of the faculty called it guessing till you get it right, according to Tina. But I like to do it in Socratic dialogue because I like you to be thinking and putting yourself in the position of that's the question, as Hamlet says, and that you're actively participating in it, because I need you to at least understand we have a method to our madness in here. And because we press you to go far, I want you to know it's not arbitrary. We're not doing it because we like beating you up, or we like asking you to be vulnerable and open. But we are actually training you to be actors, good actors. And this is according to our philosophy of theatre. You know, maybe other people don't, but that's why what we're doing in here this evening, which is asking, well, what is the function of theatre? Why do we do it? What's it all about? Now, if you've heard this lecture before and you know what the answers are, shut up. So now the rest of you, but ask again, see if you can. So when did it begin? How long ago did it begin? What were we doing in the beginning? Who wants to take a stab at it, or several stabs at it? What were we doing?
Living in caves.
We were living in caves. And what were we doing in these caves?
Surviving.
We were surviving. Lovely. And what were we doing to survive?
We were sharing our knowledge of what has made us successful, or what has made us survive successfully.
Yeah, we were sharing our knowledge about how the hell we survived. What else are we doing? What else in our early theatre days were we doing?
Entertaining.
Yeah?
Painting on the cave walls.
Yeah.
Telling our stories.
So we're telling the story through painting, and we're telling the story through verbal stories. Anything else in those early days? Is that enough?
Trying to reach the gods.
Trying to reach the gods, or understand what the gods are. Or shall I put it like this, that all kinds of shit happens, like there's huge storms, or there's floods,
Trying to understand.
Trying to understand. So, just for a moment, think. If in fact you are sitting in your cave, there's a huge storm outside, it absolutely blows up whatever you've been doing, your life's a mess because of the storm, what happens to you psychologically?
You're afraid.
You're afraid. And you're afraid of this storm, right? This storm can do things to you, and you have no idea why it comes or where it comes from. So how can you have a relationship with this storm?
By telling a story about where it comes from. By creating a mythology.
Yeah, so who created this storm?
The storm god.
The storm god created this storm. So can you see this? If you have a storm god that creates the storm, and you have a relationship with the storm god, you're not quite as helpless as you were if you don't have a storm god. So if you don't have a storm god, and it's all up to chance, and you have no idea when it's going to come again. But if you have a storm god, and you start having a few prayers to him or her, and you start doing a few rituals, and you think another storm's coming, and so you do something that you hope might ameliorate the wrath of the storm god, and my God, it works. I really have got in a relationship with the storm god. Or it doesn't work. How have I pissed off the storm god? But can you see, having a relationship doesn't leave you quite in such chaos as not having a relationship. Yeah. At least it allows you some agency to start thinking that you know a bit what's going on. So now you're going to tell the story of the storm god. And if you're going to make up a story about the storm god, what kind of story are you going to make up, and who are you going to tell it to?
You're going to make it the worst storm possible.
Yeah, the worst storm that ever happened.
And you're going to tell it to the kids.
And why is it important to tell it to your kids?
Because you survived.
Because you survived it, and you want them to survive it, even if you're too old to do anything about the storm gods. But if they can learn that they can propitiate the storm gods in this particular kind of way, then at least you're giving them some knowledge and information you hope is useful. All right, so you start seeing why we have relationships to powers that are bigger than us. Now, all right, so now we're going out hunting. What are we going to hunt?
Elk.
Elk.
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Any advance on a buffalo? I'd rather something a bit more slow moving so we can act it out.
A woolly mammoth.
A woolly mammoth. I like the woolly mammoth. Sometimes it's a saber-toothed tiger, but that's a bit too fast. The woolly mammoth is good. So we're going out and we're going to hunt the woolly mammoth. And the woolly mammoth is a fairly ferocious creature, but, chobbles grass, but can, in fact, turn on you and savage you and gore you and do all those things that woolly mammoths do. Maybe even eat you for his dinner, or her dinner. And so, does just one person go out and hunt the woolly mammoth? No, not a good idea. So we're going to send out quite a lot of people to kill the woolly mammoth. Not a whole tribe that you would trip over, but what kind of people would you send out to
warriors?
The warriors, the people who are best able to run, to avoid the woolly mammoth, to put the spears in the woolly mammoth, where the woolly mammoth needs to get the spears if he's going to end up dead, and the ones then that can actually bring the woolly mammoth home to the cave so that we can cook it and eat it. All right. So, maybe we'll just do the woolly mammoth first. Who wants to be the woolly mammoth? Okay. Now, 2, 3, 4. One more. Have I got? That's it. Okay. So now you have a little. Here, you can have my hand. This is your woolly mammoth. We need to put the table back, guys. So can you just kind of see down on your hands and knees, little glass warriors come outside here.
That's why they die now.
You're a very good woolly mammoth. So, you know that you're ferocious, don't you?
Oh, yes.
Yes. And then just as they're coming in, actually rear up and be alive again, and really gore them and do terrible things, and then let them experience that, and then die after that. Okay. Okay. Do you need parts of your life? Does that help or not?
It actually blinds me.
All right. Costumes not needed. I'm going to get my tea. And audience, notice what you think and feel as all this is going on. And notice whether it's a comedy show, whether it's an alien movie, whether it's a bloodbath, what it is. It's a protracted improv, Maddie, so just be a woolly mammoth all over the place. Shit, you know.
I mean, you did. You killed one of us.
Oh, really?
Yes.
All right.
No.
So,
You're mean.
so what was the point of enacting the woolly mammoth hunt?
To tell a story.
What story were we telling?
The first story.
The first story, but what is in the first story?
Death.
Death?
How to hunt a woolly mammoth.
The power of the woolly mammoth.
Yeah.
All right, so we might have done a little ritual around the woolly mammoth after we'd actually killed it to have a relationship with the dead woolly mammoth as opposed to the live woolly mammoth, and to be able to think, oh, well, you know, we're going to eat it now, but the heart out, you know, smother the heart. But what else were we learning? What were we learning as they came in? What were we learning about the way in which they hunted? What were we learning about that?
Their tactics.
The tactics, how you actually did it. And then what did we learn?
We learned that not everybody survives.
Not everybody survived. That's a new one, that is, actually getting somebody killed. That was very good. Actually, the woolly mammoth hunt got derailed for a bit because somebody died. And then what happens once the woolly mammoth is dead? What happens then? We actually abandoned the body there. But what does the woolly mammoth mean to the tribe now? Survival. Every part of it can be used. We actually can, you know, have food to eat. We can honor the spirit of the woolly mammoth, so hopefully more woolly mammoths will come along. But we're telling the story how. How is it different from just reciting the story? How is it different? Why is the enactment of it different from us just telling the story of it?
It's experiential.
It's experiential. And why is the experiential, to enact the experiential, more important than telling the story?
You need to prepare for the experience of it.
Yes, you have to prepare for the experience from it. So if, where is he, dead body? If you
have a name.
In my scenario, you're dead. So what did you learn by being killed by the woolly mammoth?
The woolly mammoth is surprisingly cunning and dangerous.
Yes. And so here you are, one of the warriors, but you weren't clever enough to avoid being killed by the woolly mammoth. So what do you learn if you're one of the people watching the woolly mammoth and you see one person being killed? What do you learn experientially?
It's risky.
It's risky, but not just only it's risky, if the point is survival what?
That the strong survive and the weak die.
The strong I would even say the clever. Those who know how the woolly mammoth is going to charge might be able to avoid the woolly mammoth. But if you give way to fear if the woolly mammoth is charging you, is your sense of will your survival be better or worse?
Worse.
So the idea would be to know what it's like for the woolly mammoth to charge you, and you be able to hold your ground so you can throw the spear at the last minute, even though every impulse in you wants to run away. You're actually not. You're standing your ground because somebody has taught you that's the best thing to do. You are learning as a young person, I'm going to stand my ground as the woolly mammoth charges, and I am going to throw my sword. So, or whatever it is my spear. So the experience of enacting the story puts us into the position of living the thing as close as we can, and it not being the thing itself. Do you understand? And we're doing it in order to learn. We're doing it in order to see what happens. So an experienced tribe will take all the experienced hunters and take the new hunters under their wing and say, this is how you do it. Hold your ground here. And somebody's playing the woolly mammoth. So with luck, he will or she will be playing the woolly mammoth to the best of their ability. And when the woolly mammoth comes for you, whether you know it's for pretend or it's real, the fear takes you over. Do you know what I mean? The fear will still be there. Even though you know you're not going to die, it's like when you're going on stage. You know you're going to be able to do it, but the fear just about takes you over. And then you find a way, once you're on stage, to pull in all that energy to yourself, focus, do what you're doing, but now you're in expanded awareness, and get the energy of everybody that you're telling the story to, because it's your job to inform them of the truth of the story. If you're not telling the story truthfully, it doesn't tell the story as well. It doesn't teach the young. It doesn't allow us to enact the thing and be able to look at it. Are you with me? Yes. So I say to you, the function of the woolly mammoth hunt is still the function of theatre. It's still the same story. That we're actually putting our bodies and minds and emotional life in the way of the woolly mammoth. We're going to see what happens when the woolly mammoth charges, or we come close to death, or our comrades fall, so that actually we know how to do it better next time, so the tribe can survive. There's a reason why armies play war games. And terrible things happen in war games. You know, it's not neutral, it's not nothing, as you'll find out tomorrow night when Stephen does his piece. But it's not, they play war games in order for you to have the fear, the overwhelming horror, the sense of being under attack, with all the stuff there, so that you can go through it before you go through it. And so that you can start training your nervous systems, if you will, to be able to experience this. Well, in theatre, we are doing violence on stage, but it's nothing like going into the theatre of war. It may be a little, but we don't want the audience to be so overwhelmed that they can't think or feel. We want the audience to be in exactly the place where they empathize with what's going on, and their bodies are moving and shifting, as you said, but still you can still have the space or the awareness of actually being conscious that this is human life. This is how we behave. This is what our society does. As I said before, the three great questions under Shakespeare's plays. What does it mean to be a human being? And you're enacting what it means to be a human being. You're not reporting on it.
So when I was pressing Gordon, I was trying to get him to stop reporting on it and start embodying it. So you are embodying it. And then, so your body is going through and learning this stuff, but then you still have the ability to be able to see what it is. So either when it happens to you in life, you've had a practice run at it, or if your country suddenly starts getting taken over by dictatorship, you've got at least some kind of prism to look at it. And it's not just all in the abstract. Here it is, you know. So that there is an actual function to what theatre is doing. And it's to allow us to understand those things that we don't understand, to bring those things that are unconscious to consciousness, so we can expand our awareness and know we are wiser, if you want to know, or we are more, we are deeper in our understanding about actually what's going on. So theatre starts being entertainment instead of an experiential debate, I'm going to call it, or an experiential learning process in which the things the tribe has to learn or the community has to learn are there for you to, as an audience member, to pick up. And from there it just keeps on going, this separation between the actors and the audience. It becomes a place of social gathering, but as much to look at each other's clothes as it is to actually saying we're here because this play can actually teach us something. The play is there to entertain us, not there to be a deep learning experience. And if you just look and see where this leads us, so that if when I first was part of theatre, you know, we were still doing drawing room comedies all the time, Noel Coward, but a lot more, far more, less smart than Noel Coward. So it was still about behaviour and manners. I don't mean in the 30s and 40s there hadn't been some good theatre going on around, but that was not the norm. The norm was you went to the theatre, the curtains open, everybody applauded the set because it's the visual thing, the lead actor walked on, everybody applauded the lead actor, you know, and thus it went. There were the rites and rituals, but they were all about, they were not about the big issues, they were about comedies, or if it was a tragedy, you would, maybe with Ibsen, you start now getting Ibsen dragging onto the stage serious issues like syphilis, you know. And not everybody knows exactly what's being talked about, but they can see it's something that got handed on from mother to son. The son is now dying because of something the mother did to do with sex. Not quite sure, but you know. But most of the theatres that we have are, all our Broadway theatres are that way, you know, we sit here, the curtain is up there, and we do things to undo it, you know, and there's lots of theatre programmes now which are, you know, everybody's doing their theatre for social change. So we're changing the theatre again, but the expensive theatre, the powerful theatre, is us sitting there, them sitting there, the lights are on them, we're in the dark, so we have our private experience, we don't see our fellow audience members, we don't have any of that collective storytelling. And then we invent the television screen, so we can do even on the film screen. So we can put ourselves, we don't even have to be in the same room anymore. You know, we can be millions of miles away from the actors. Now, anything we do as an audience member doesn't affect the actors at all, because it's already filmed and put over there. So the visual is totally dominant. And now we've found ways about, you know, how long things can go on for, how fast do we want there's a laugh track to go for, so that you know when to laugh. I mean, can you imagine we put in laugh tracks to tell people when to laugh? But do you see how it's completely separated out now? We're no longer doing the experiential recreating of a human story which has some
deep information to give us about our lives in this present moment. Even if we're writing about a culture 200 or 2,000 years earlier, yeah.
What do you say to the argument that when we are in a theater, in a collective space, but in the dark, it is the privacy that allows us to, in a society that, especially with males, but with females as well, that tells us, like, your emotions are not okay, and then they put you in a dark space where you are allowed to experience catharsis. What is the argument there?
Well, my argument is you shouldn't have let the Puritans in the first place. No, I tell you, it's this whole debate that we've got into in this country about you can't put your hands on anybody. There's the whole thing about elementary school teachers not being able to hug their kids, that we've got to be careful because the 20-year-olds are traumatized because of this, you've got to tell them, oh, I'm going to have a tragic ending to this story. And a lot of people, do you want to know what the ending of the story is? I'll tell you so you don't get triggered. The whole point is you've got to get triggered. You know, the point is to trigger you. Putting you in the dark so you can't see what anybody else's emotion is. Where's the common humanity in that? So from my point of view, we've got to be courageous about this. We've got to step out and say, no, we are all like this. And I don't care what your religion is, what your background is, human beings are human beings. And if we can't see that human beings are human beings, and we can't feel that human beings are human beings, then we're not going to know that we're deeply connected. We're going to let, the kids get absolutely decimated because of the way we allow them to be brought up. I mean, it's outrageous. And so I think it's a bullshit argument. I think it's a too shallow argument, is what I think. I think it doesn't look deeply enough at what the issues are that we're trying to do. You don't have to believe what I say. Well, what I would like to invite you to do is to ask the question about it and where it sits for you and where it is. Superwoman did this workshop, God knows how many years ago, why would she make her whole life about doing this when she actually needed to do her next movie for $1 million? So I'm trying to say, even if you don't want it to be what you're asking the deepest questions about, at least ask the questions and then decide how it fits into your life. Do you understand me? So that you can think about, okay, yeah, actually I'm going to start my own theatre company, or okay, yeah, well, I'm going to really use this when I'm going to audition for Julius Caesar, but when I'm going in to do my, I don't know, silly play, like Neil Simon, no, I'm not going to think about it, except just in these 3 lines. All right, good night, God bless.